Hi, everybody. My name is Kevin. I'm an alcoholic. Just breathe. What a tough week, huh? Just try to, do a lot of just breathing to try to become, where my feet are, and just welcome everybody here. To come out after a week like this on a Friday night is really, you deserve a pat on the back. And I also had a problem with dairy. I ended up here. So my sobriety date is the 19th of November, 1984. And through some reasons that I don't know. I mean, anything I talk about tonight is just what happened to me. And if your sponsor tells you something different, do what your sponsor says, because it's just, that's how the program works. It's an individualized program, and it works wherever space that you're at, that's the way it works for you. But get a sponsor. And if you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous, welcome. I can't say that enough, because that's what you guys told me. Well, when I crawled into the room at Alcoholics Anonymous, you just reached out with unconditional love and told me that if I didn't drink one day at a time, I'd have a chance. And I like, how do you do that? I had no idea how to live without drinking. And at my first meeting, there was a greeter there. And I think that's the most important thing. That's the most important job in Alcoholics Anonymous. Chris talked about the quarterly that's coming up in January, and all that stuff is really good. But the people that make the coffee to welcome you in, they bring the cookies and stand at the door and tell you welcome. That's what this whole deal is all about, in my experience. Because I didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous when I walked into these rooms. I just came here because, again, the dairy, and I was vomiting in the morning all the time, and if I could just get it straightened out, and my wife had thrown me out, and I ended up here, and haven't taken anything above the neck for 40 years. I couldn't imagine 40 days when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. That was like a long time, and there was nobody. I mean, I knew someone with 5 years, 7 years, and 10 years when I came here, and it seemed like they had that was like a million years. Like, oh my God, they had 5 years. 3 years, I was like, wow, I'm hanging on every word that they said. And now, Suzanne got 39 years there, and it's like, that's like nothing, you don't even get anything for it now. It's like 55 or something, but so again, welcome. Nothing made sense to me. Most of the time, it still doesn't now, but especially when I was a kid, I just heard different things than other people did. I was the oldest of 5 children, and there was like me and 4 other people. My father suffered from depression. My mother was busy, always, helping people. And I just didn't hang around the house too much, because, and they didn't even miss me, it was like, I asked a lot of questions. I didn't think that they were doing it right. I wanted explanations on things, and if I just disappeared, everything was okay. And this is 8, 9, 10 years old. Somewhere around that time, I discovered alcohol. I was an altar boy, and so at the time, I had an unlimited supply of sacramental wine. Because some of the priests drank a little bit, and you could just, it was crazy. You probably can't do that today, but and we would drink, and then we would start bartering. I was a barterer. We would barter wine for beer and alcohol and liquor. And something happened when I drank. I felt okay. Again, at 10 years old, 11, 12, there was just something there. It was like, whoa. I know I'm going to be all right. I felt comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable at school. I didn't feel. My father was a teacher, in a public school, but I went to the Catholic school, and I was always getting in trouble, and they would always say, like, your father's a teacher, how could you do this? And I'm like, you people don't scare me at all. They didn't scare me. I saw how crazy he was at home, and so I had like no fear of authority. I just did my own thing. I drank the wine. And I felt okay then. And I've always was looking for that feeling of being okay. Now I get that feeling when I walk up to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and you smell the coffee. It's like, oh, I know it's going to be okay for an hour. It could be the craziest stuff going on, but that's what happened. And that started right in the beginning. Where I got sober, there was a church basement, and you would walk up and it was cold in the winter. I got sober in November, so those first couple of months were, I remember them like they were yesterday. And congratulations, you're at 60 days, man. That's a long time. Long time. I just keep coming. And I would smell that coffee, and it would be like, I'm going to be okay. The same thing happened when I walked into the bars. I would open the door of the bar, and you could smell the sawdust and the piss and the beer, and it was just like, it's going to be okay. It was just like, wow, I don't even have to rush to the bartender. I tell them, go take care of somebody else, because I was home. I was okay. I didn't have anything to worry about. I was going to be able to feel better. I got in all kinds of trouble drinking, all kinds of trouble in school, drinking in grammar school, drinking in high school. I thought I just had bad luck. Why was I always being picked on? No matter what was going on, how come you always pick on me? Even when I didn't even do it, they would come to me and say, like, Kevin, why'd you do that? I thought it was just the deck was stacked against me, and life wasn't fair. Totally unfair. If you only understood. I was never trying to be a bad person. I was always trying to do the right thing, and I had a real hard problem with the execution. I would have the idea that I want to do something right, and there was like a short circuit, and it would be wrong, and it'd be like, oh my God, I'm sorry again. I didn't mean to break into that house. I didn't mean to get caught, stealing this. I didn't, it was just somebody left a window open and there was liquor in there. It's not my fault, these kind of things. This is easy. It was never my fault. It was never my fault. In high school, I could go on. I could talk for an hour of the things that I did in high school that they tried to throw me out on. Again, it was a parochial high school. There was some political stuff going on, and they weren't able to throw me out. They were really pissed that I was even there, that I was doing the things I was doing. And I was like hanging on by a thread. And I was always threatened. Did you guys get threatened? You're not living up to your potential. You're screwing up. We're going to throw you out. That's what I got. That's what I got all the time. All the time. In high school, when we would have parties, which was every weekend, I think I was about a junior in high school, and I had a car. And I remember these girls would take the keys from the car from me before the party started, like in the afternoon, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to buy, and they're like, give us your keys. I'm like, why? Because you're going to get drunk, and you don't want you driving. And I would wake up the next morning in the woods somewhere, and like, where's my car? And I had how did they know that I was going to get drunk? And I'm going to swear to this, I never set out to get drunk. I just wanted to feel better. I just wanted that feeling to go away. I just wanted to be able to breathe like I do in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, or I did in the bar room. I just wanted to be able to relax and go, that it's okay. And I thought you all did that. It seemed to me that you guys all knew that's how it was, but I didn't. It was me against the world, and nobody understood me. So the only time I was understood was with the alcohol, and the only people that I liked to hang around with. I was on a bunch of sports teams, and I quit them because I'd rather drink and go to practice, and coaches were never happy about that. they wouldn't even give me my diploma. So it's graduation, you're going to go up onto the stage, whatever. So they tell me before graduation, don't cause any trouble. And I'm like, again, why would I cause any trouble? I'm a nice guy. Before anything even happened. And it took like 3 months for me to get that diploma because I'm out of school, I'm graduated, and they still think I'm going to do something bad. It's a funny story. My brother goes to this school 4 years after I did. He's a freshman, and he's there for 2 weeks, and he left the school because he was tired of all the teachers coming up to him and saying, don't do any of the things your brother did, or we're gonna, he was like, I didn't do anything. He's not an alcoholic, he's a straight kid. And they thought he was gonna be like me, and they were really scared. They were really scared. So I stumbled out of high school. I went to college for a little bit. So the drinking age had switched from 21 to 18 in New Jersey. That's where I was drinking. And I was 18 that year. So I was, this is a God thing, right? We talk about those things in here. It doesn't get any better than that, right? Now I'm going to be able, because I was drinking in bars when I was 15, but you always had to worry, were they going to ask for proof or this and that? You had to go with the bartenders who were old guys, and they weren't going to know the difference. So God gives me this thing that He changes the drinking age, and so in college I was able to, and the pub was open at noon. This again, they didn't really know what they were doing at the time, but the pub was open at noon, so I would go in and bring a philosophy book into the pub at 18 years old and not go to other classes and think that I was going to change the world, and it was really good. And that didn't really work. That didn't really work too well. That year that it changed from 21 to 18, I remember at midnight going into the bar and telling them I wanted to drink, and they threw me out of the bar. And they said, you can't be drunk in the bar. I'm like, what? What's the whole purpose of this thing? That, they wouldn't let me into the bar, and I had to go back the next morning to get my first legal drink. So college wasn't going too good. Nobody understood me. They just didn't understand. I was pretty smart, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to take tests, or I didn't want to read what their books. I wanted to do my own thing. And again, it doesn't go over too good if they only understood how my intention. I really wanted to do good. It just wasn't working. So I'm 19 years old, and I'm in love, and my girlfriend gets pregnant, and we get married at 19 years old. Now I can't believe that, looking back. It's just, I was so immature, and I thought I was the smartest person in the whole world. I thought I was brilliant. If people would only listen to me, if they would pay attention to me, I could change the whole world. But no one was listening to me, so we end up getting married. We have 4 kids by the time I'm 25. And so that wasn't really, again, just the way that's just the way it was. It wasn't. I had no idea that alcohol was a problem. My wife's father drank quite a bit, and I'd like to go over there. He had the good stuff, Beck's, Heineken, and so I didn't really like the guy, but I would go over to his house. When we got married, so she's pregnant, and we tell him, and he's not very happy with me, and so we go. He puts on his wedding for us. I go into the wedding, and I'm at the head table. And it's not the greatest thing, but it's in a nice place. And they're serving Budweiser. And behind me, they have a tub of beer, and it's Budweiser, and I'm embarrassed because I'm putting on a party here with his money for my friends. This is like this is my coming out party. Like I'm the debutante or whatever, right? Isn't it like here I am, 19 years old, get to invite all my friends to my wedding, and he's embarrassing me. And I called to make the D over, and we got it, and I ended up having a Heineken and help him. You know, I didn't want to look cheap on this thing. I really wanted to, you know, make a good impression on these people with someone else's money. Again, you know, looking back, it's like, wow, he didn't kill me. I mean, it's really the stuff that I did. So it was tough being married to me. It was just it wasn't good. Yet I wanted it to be good. I really tried to do everything right. I tried to be a nice person, but again, problem with the execution. So I wanted to be a loving father. You go to put the kids to bed, and you fall asleep. You pass out, fall asleep, whatever. I thought it was, you know, that happens, right? I work a lot. You know, things happen. You know, the beds are comfortable. The kids go downstairs, and you know, I'm upstairs sleeping. That happened a lot. And then the worst days were, there was always like Christmas and First Communion and baptism, all those kind of, you know, holidays where the family came over. And those were like legal drinking days, right? You could start in the morning on a day like that. That's an official day when you could drink. And I would always pass out by, you know, and maybe I'd drink some wine too, but then, you know, eat early, pass out at 2:00. My wife was never happy about that. She would always, you know, she's left with the 4 kids, and I'm sleeping and telling her what's her problem, you know. And then it got to be the point where I would wake up every morning and say I was sorry. I would just say it as a matter of course. I would just say I'm sorry, and 1 out of 20 times she said you didn't do anything last night. But you know, it just wasn't fair. I really was trying to be a good person. I've always tried to be a good person. But something happened when I drank. And again, I never set out to get drunk. I just wanted to feel okay. One time she asked me, could I not drink so much? No one ever said anything about stopping drinking. They just talked about not drinking so much. And so I went to the store. I mean, I was working. I had a couple of drinks at work, but that doesn't really count. That was like lunchtime. So I come home with a 6-pack of Perrier or something, and I didn't drink that night. And I counted that for the whole day because I, you know, normally drank 1 or 2 6-packs a night. So the next day, so I went 8 hours without drinking. The next day I pull in a liquor store, and I had one of those cars that beep, automatically pulls in a liquor store. So I don't know if anybody else has had one of those, but I would just drive by and it would just go there. You know, it's there. What am I going to do? You know, so I go into the liquor store, and I drank Miller High Life at the time, and the Miller is $2.50, and the Perrier is $3. And you know, she was always complaining about money. Like about, you know, we don't have enough money. What do? You spend all the money. So I made an executive decision. I said, oh, I'm going to save her some money tonight. I'm going to buy the beer and not the Perrier. I come home with the beer. She's like, what are you doing? You said you weren't going to drink tonight. And I was like, you don't understand me. Here it is again. I'm trying to save you money. I'm trying to save you money, and you're yelling at me. That's just the way my luck went. I also told her, she would say, you know, why your eyes were red in the morning. And I told her that she bought the wrong shampoo. I was like, if you would buy a decent shampoo, that I would not have. I did not know until I was a couple of weeks sober that the alcohol caused the red eyes. I remember waking up and looking in the mirror and going, oh my God, she was right. She was right. She was right about a lot of things. And there was another thing that I thought she was crazy. I thought she made up a lot of the stuff that she did for dramatic impact. Like I had no idea. And one morning she's really pissed. Like, and again, a couple I'm sorry's. And I was like, what did I do? You know, I just got home. And she told me that I peed on the TV. And I told her I would never do that. It had to be the dog. So I'm at a meeting at Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a couple of weeks sober. And there's a guy up on the podium like this talking about blackouts. And I was like, oh, no. She was probably right about some of those stuff that she said. I mean, I would always tell her she was wrong. She lied. I blamed her for, I was brutal. I was brutal. She was the only person I know who came to Alcoholics Anonymous because I told her that she couldn't drink. She was like 4'11". She would have one drink, 1.5 drinks, and she would be tipsy. And I would say, I'll drive, we'd be at a party. I said, I'm used to this. I drive every day like this. You know, you can't handle your... I told her that she was an alcoholic because she couldn't handle her liquor. So she comes to Alcoholics Anonymous sometime in my first year. She gets a sponsor. She's doing everything. This Irish lady, a couple of weeks in, this Irish lady comes to me and says, Kevin, she's not an alcoholic, you know. But that's the craziness. That's the effect that we have on the family. You know, I just beat her up for 10 years that you couldn't handle alcohol. I could handle this stuff. I drive with it every single day. I drink every single day. I rarely get sick. Again, the dairy or desserts. I couldn't eat sweet desserts. The first time, the guys, I was 1 week sober, and they said to me, come on, we're going out for ice cream. And I said, I don't eat sweet stuff. If I have anything sweet, I get sick. I mean, I can't eat that. I had no idea it was that after 10 drinks that, you know, I would eat something and I would throw up. The other thing, just that I remember, there was always the door handles. There was always holes in the wall, and like for some reason from slamming doors, and that hasn't happened since I came to you guys. So maybe the doors got stronger, but I don't know. It's you know, anecdotally, there's something there. I mean, I don't do good around alcoholics, drinking alcoholics. I mean, and again, I have so much empathy for my kids and for my first wife there that had to live with active alcoholism. And it's insanity. It's total insanity. I mean, as I stand here and talk about some of these things, and again, I could talk forever, but the things that we do, and it's just not fair. It's just not fair. I think the family of the alcoholic has it worse than the alcoholic. That's just, you know, I'll just leave it at that. But that's just, it's brutal. So my wife's brother, who I think he's a lightweight, but he goes into a rehab for drugs and alcohol. And she tells me that, and I was like, what? He's an alcoholic and an addict? You know, I'm thinking like, you know, this guy doesn't even, I drank a lot more than him. And she starts going to the Al-Anon family groups, and I have this, again, another soft spot in my heart for the Al-Anon family groups, because I'm here tonight because of the greeter at my first meeting and a woman on an Al-Anon hotline. Because my wife is going to these Al-Anon people, and we had separated, and I'm showing up at 2 o'clock in the morning and throwing rocks through the window and telling her I want to, you know, discuss the children's welfare and all this insanity. And she started telling me, you know, Kevin, would you know, please come back when you're not drinking. I go on a Sunday to pick up the kids, and she would say, please come back when you're not drinking. That was a real problem because I drank every day, and you know, this is what she said. So I said, she got this thing. They were going to family or aftercare in the rehab where my brother-in-law was, and it was something. Could you not drink for 90 days? And I was like, of course. I mean, I don't drink because I only drink because I don't like juice, I don't like soda, I don't like water, I don't like milk. And I thought she was trying to dehydrate me. It was just like, what's wrong with you? You know, like. It's not that I want to drink, it's just that I just have to, you know, keep fluids going into my body. So I was worried, you know, when she's like not reacting, because there was always this reaction would go on. There were a lot of screaming and yelling, and that happened on almost a daily basis. and she wasn't doing it anymore, and I was worried about the kids. I'm like, these kids have a Stepford mother here that, is devoid of emotion, and this isn't good for them. And so I called the Al-Anon hotline. I think that's the number she gave me. And on November 18th, 1984, I talked to that woman for 3 hours on the hotline. And I kept on trying to tell her that, we had a problem at home. We were separated, and all of a sudden, she's not reacting to anything I say. It doesn't matter. I could scream and yell, and she would just tell me, please, don't come back when you're not drinking. Please. And I was like, there's something wrong with you, girl. There's something wrong. So I told the Al-Anon lady this over and over again. And all the Al-Anon lady said to me, and again, these people saved my life. Said, did I think I had a problem with alcohol? Would I like to go to meeting Alcoholics Anonymous? I'm like, lady, you don't understand. Let me tell you the story again. She's not responding, no matter what I do. She's emotionally flatlining, and you're telling me that I have a problem? So after 3 hours, I asked her where the meetings were. I didn't know that you guys had meetings, and I hadn't drank. I didn't drink the next day. I didn't know that you guys had meetings on the weekends. I didn't know that you had meetings when it rained. So on Monday night, that was a Friday night that I talked to the Al-Anon lady. I didn't have a good 2 days. I remember I had a comforter on the bed and it was soaked. The whole detoxing thing wasn't. I didn't know I was detoxing. I just thought I had the worst case of the flu around. And on Monday night, I called the AA hotline at 5 o'clock, and it was raining out, and I asked them, was it meeting Alcoholics Anonymous on? And they told me it was. And they told me when I got to that meeting to tell the people at the door that it was my first meeting at Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't know how they knew that it was going to be my first meeting at Alcoholics Anonymous. Probably because I asked them when it was raining if you had a meeting. And I walked in there. I had 3 days I hadn't drank. I wasn't feeling good at all. And they took me over to a table of guys. And I have no idea what was said or anything. All I know was when two guys grabbed my hand, I'm like, whoa, what's going on? To say the prayer. But they gave me the book Living Sober that night. And I could only read a couple sentences, but it looked like there was ways in that book that you didn't have to drink. And I didn't think, I'm saying like that with some enthusiasm, I didn't. It was just like, I didn't know how not to drink. And again, I had told her that I wasn't going to drink for 90 days, and then I figured I would go out and drink again. I didn't know what alcoholism was. I didn't know anything. I went to a meeting on Tuesday night, and the guy got up there, and he had his suit and tie on, and he talked about things from the podium that I had inside of me that I've never told anybody in my life. He talked about those feelings, and I was like, wow, how does this happen? Next night I had to work. The next night I go to a meeting in a place called Mountain Lakes, New Jersey, and it's like a rich town. So everything is there's big setbacks for the houses, and for the first couple of weeks, I would drive into police stations in the town and ask them where to meet, ask them where the church was. I was like walking to a police station. It was really cool to be able to, you're paranoid for years about the cops. Here is this, I could go in and go, officer, where's St. such church? And, but I couldn't find the church that night. And I was scared. And it was dark. And I was driving around. And I screamed out. I said, God, either get me to this meeting or get me to a bar. All of a sudden, two ladies showed up. They told me where the church was. I go into this meeting. Now, this isn't a speaker meeting. This is a meeting where they're sitting around they're sitting around the table. And they start at one end over here. I'm at the other end. And as they go around, everybody's introducing themselves and saying that they're alcoholics. And I'm like, uh-oh. I'm sweating. My palms were sweating. I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to do this thing too. And that was the first night that I said my name was Kevin and I was an alcoholic, and I've been saying it ever since. But what they told me, and if you do, this is what they told me that night. And I remember like it was yesterday. They told me that there's a lot of different meetings at Alcoholics Anonymous. And you'll like some and you won't like other ones. And they said, go to the ones that you like and don't go to the ones that you don't like. And in almost 40 years, I haven't been to a meeting I didn't like in alcohol. I did go to one meeting I didn't like in Alcoholics Anonymous in 40 years. And they weren't doing it right. And it wasn't that long ago, maybe 5-6 years ago. And I call my sponsor up and I'm like, and I got the proof, right? This is it. Like, I'm going to tell them how they were doing it wrong. And he said to me, oh, you don't have to go to that one anymore, right? And I was like, whoa, boy, you just busted my sales. But that really, go to the ones that you like and don't go to the ones that you do like. That we have a lot, and we're really lucky here. We have a lot of different, I get to travel around the world now, and sometimes I have to go 30 miles for a meeting. Sometimes it's not a meeting in the language that, that's native to me. I see people that get on trains and go to meetings. We're so blessed with the density of the meetings that we have around here. So the next night, I go to a meeting, and this is a group that turns out to be my first home group, and it's a big book group. And we met on Friday night. We had 50, 70 people, and we went through the book line by line. And some nights we would only read one sentence with that many people when they would talk about it. And I thought everybody went through this. We also had a beginners meeting before this meeting. And it wasn't a beginners meeting where what it was is they take two people with 3 years, and they would come in and they would tell you about Alcoholics Anonymous. They would tell you what a GSR is and what a conference is or what a quarterly is. Sometimes we talk about those things and we think that people know what they are, and they don't. But these were explained to us. I remember one of the things they said. You go to a meeting in California and everybody's going to clap like crazy for you. You walk in the door in California and they're clapping like this. So it's just it's just different. And that was explained. What the 12 and 12. I didn't know any of that stuff, and that was really good. And then we went to the big book meeting. And again, line by line, we would go over everything. And the meeting would get over at 10 o'clock at night, and then we would go out for coffee. And for that first year, I would stay out until 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's what I used to do. And it would start out that there would be 30 of us there, and at the end of the night, there was 2 or 3 people there, and we're just smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee. And I'm complaining to my sponsor that I don't sleep. And he's like, you drink coffee till 3 o'clock in the morning, during the week, and 5 o'clock on the weekends. But I didn't know. So that group became my home group. And then that was another thing. They explained what is a home group. We don't tell people that. We only have one problem in Alcoholics Anonymous, in my opinion. We don't educate the people. We don't educate well enough. We come in, we talk about the steps, and we don't talk about how big this thing is and how connected it is, and that there's so much more than going to a meeting and putting $1 in a basket. But that's another story. Talk to me after the meeting if you want to hear more about that. So we did the steps in that meeting at the pace of the slowest person. So we'd always have new people come in. We'd go. So I got to. We did the steps out of the book, and what we used to talk about, that there was a plan, program, of recovery. It was laid out in the first 164 pages of the book. And if you don't drink a day at a time, you have a chance of being sober if you follow along with that. I had a bunch of guys that. On Saturday night, we went to a speaker meeting. On Sunday night, we went to a speaker meeting. On Monday night, we went to a discussion meeting. On Tuesday night, we went to a 12 and 12 meeting. So I got to hear people's experience with these steps in a lot of different environments and out of different pieces of our literature, and that's. I didn't realize that not everyone had that experience in Alcoholics Anonymous for a long time. And I didn't do anything. I stumbled in these rooms, and I just ended up asking that first guy to be my sponsor. I've asked 1, 2, 3 people to marry me. Asking him to be my sponsor was the hardest thing I ever did. And I remember I opened the door of the car. He was letting me out, and I was like, "Okay, would you be my sponsor?" And he said he would be my temporary sponsor, and he was my temporary sponsor for 21 years. And don't. My experience is this thing. I don't think you can do it alone, man. I know I couldn't, man. I needed someone to tell me. I needed someone to tell me what was going on, to tell me what to do. And no sponsor has ever told me what to do. What they've done is love me. They've reached out and said this. They've shared their experience, and they've shared with me unconditional love, which is the gig here. That's what this is about. It's about unconditional love. I love that group, and again, I've always we were active. I became the coffee maker of the group, and I was thinking about this. I was a couple months sober, and we had 30 inches of snow that we get up there, and I was the coffee maker, and I had the key, and I showed up to make the coffee, and I got yelled. That was the only time I got yelled at by my sponsor. He was like, no one showed up, just me, but I was ready just in case. The roads were all closed, and so then they started talking about rotation, like, you got to give up this commitment. And I'm like, are you crazy? Who's going to make coffee? We have, everyone's counting on me. I come here all the time. You think someone else is going to make coffee as good as I do? I don't want to give it up. And they told me that I could train this person. And when I was confident enough that they could make the coffee and clean up the kitchen to my standards, that I could give it up. And rotation is a really cool thing that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous, because the highest job you can get in Alcoholics Anonymous is being a servant, is just helping. There is no hierarchy here. It doesn't exist anywhere else. I had another job. I was the literature person, and we ran out of a pamphlet. And I'm 6 months sober, and I'm worried. So not only am I going to make coffee in the snow, what if someone comes in that night and we don't have that pamphlet? And they're going to go out and get drunk, and it's going to be my fault. So I get another guy, and I'm in North Jersey. We're close to the General Service Office, which at the time had the literature and everything in New York City. So we get in the car, we go over to New York City, we go to the General Service Office, and we buy some pamphlets. And at the time, our office was on Park Avenue South. Pretty fancy place. And one of the staff members took us in the office and sat down and said, "What can we do for you?" And I never forgot that. I've always told people in Alcoholics Anonymous in service, that was the most, that's the deal here. What can we do for you? One alcoholic helping the other. There is no hierarchy. There's no bosses. It's just, what can we do for you? I was just blown away. And I've been able to do a little bit of service in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's it. We just get to help people, man. What a cool thing. What a cool thing. So a planned program of recovery laid out in the first 164 pages of the book is what these guys told me. They also told me to, join a group. Get active in that group. Show up early. I didn't have anything else to do. I'm not going to say that I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't have a moment of clarity and decide that I was going to be an alcoholic. I had nothing else to do. And it was like, and you guys told me to keep coming back, and you could drink coffee and you would talk to me. And when I was 16, they sent me to a shrink, and I thought it was like the coolest thing, because they would talk to me. They would talk to me for the whole 50 minutes, and not throw me out. And you guys would talk to me for hours upon hours upon hours, and I would ask you questions. And there was a girl in the group who had a 3-year-old kid that died, and she didn't drink. She didn't drink. I was like, I can't believe this. And I was making like $200 a week, $300 a week or something. I remember giving her a couple $100 because I had never seen anything like that. Then I kept on hearing stories about you don't have to drink. You don't have to drink no matter what happens. And people just started showing up. So I show up at this meeting and I hear this. So we're outside this meeting smoking our cigarettes. And there was a group of us, newly sober, and we're talking, you never see anybody. So there should have been some people like 40 years sober, 1984, where were they? Where were they? I knew there was one person in the next town who had 13 years, Renee, and that was like a million years. And so we're outside the meeting, just like you guys smoking there, saying, where are the people that have the 35 years? We go to a beginner's meeting. There was another beginner's meeting, and we're going around. And there was a woman there, and she said that she had 35 years sober. And we're just like, wow, how does this thing work? And she was all dressed up, and it was my first group anniversary that I went to, but I didn't know what a group anniversary was. I didn't know. And this woman started talking about unconditional love when she got up there, and she was doing some things that were the most. She was talking about things that I wanted to do my whole life, and she was doing them. She was doing them. She was a hopeless alcoholic. She came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and she just had this love. And she didn't have a lot of things going for her. Her husband had thrown her out in early sobriety, and she was 35 years sober. She went back and was taking care of him while he was dying. And just something spoke to me. And I didn't know that there were circus speakers. I didn't know anything about it. I got her phone number. I called her up. I would call her up at 2 o'clock in the morning and talk to her. And because nothing was going right for me. My kids didn't like me. I was getting divorced. And all she told me was, Kevin, love them. That's your only job. Just love them, whatever they do. And she was doing it. She was doing this deal. She just died recently. Her name was Liz Bailey. And again, who does that for people? Who gets to do that? And so in the journey, I moved around a lot. I got sober in New Jersey. I moved to Boston. I didn't like it when I first moved up there. They weren't doing things right. And then I've been sponsoring a guy for 36 years because he was new too. I was a couple years sober, and neither of us thought they were doing it right. And we started a meeting in Boston that's still going on. 35 years now, and we still talk. A couple times a week. And he knows me better than any of the people I've been. We know everything about each other. I mean, that's a long time. Like we know some crazy stuff. Quick story. We went on vacation with him and his wife once, and she started telling a story at dinner, and I'm thinking, like, that's not the story. She's missing like the whole part about. And I was like, ooh, I only hear one edge, one side of this story. I can't say. I did say something, but I haven't sensed that. So you guys told me I was powerless over everything. When I came to those discussion meetings and at noontime every day, and a lot of times I would say, does anybody have a problem or a topic? And for a couple of years, I always had a problem. I didn't have a topic, I had a problem. There was always something because I felt like my nerves were on the outside of my skin. This was terrifying. To do these things without drinking, it was like I was terrified. So I would talk about it. I go back to the meeting the next week, and people would ask me how that problem was, and I didn't even remember the problem because I had 7 problems between them. Because every day something would come up that was major. So it was just you're just powerless, no matter what it was. We were powerless, and you guys had the same answer. The same answer for everything. Don't drink. Go to a meeting. Turn it over. In God's time. Like all the slogans that they have up. I mean, this is all they said. Live and let live. Let go and let God. I was looking for, the answer like I needed money. And, you're saying, let go and let God, live and let live. It's all going to work out. Then he told me that there is a power available to human being people. That was it. There is a power, whatever that is, don't get into any discussion, whatever. And that if I turn my will, my life over to this power, things would probably work out the way they were supposed to. And I don't know how they're supposed to work out. And it's funny, I don't think we should have discussion meetings in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because we have a discussion meeting, we walk in there and we have a problem or a topic, and it's like things aren't, hey, my wife is mad at me today. And what is the program tells me to do is to go pray and meditate, and the answer will come. But no, we share our experience with it. And then I did the inventory and shared that with my sponsor, and things that I was, again, never going to tell anybody. And I used to think we lost people in step 4 and 5 in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't anymore. Again, this is just my experience. Is 6 and 7. There's something there when we say like, I ain't in charge anymore, and it's not up to me how things work out. What you told me is just don't drink today, and things will fall into place. And you don't know how things are supposed to fall into place. I didn't know when that cop was knocking on my window, giving me a second DUI, that it was an angel. I had no idea. I thought I had the worst luck, right? Worst luck. I don't have a place to live. I'm living on the street. I'm in a rehab. There's all these things that we don't know. We live life forward and understand it backwards. You look back and go, oh, okay, that was really good. I'm glad that happened. But at the time, it didn't really look like, it didn't really look like the greatest thing. I did the best I can to make it right. I'm always trying to make it right with my kids. They don't like me most of the time. And again, my job is, goes back to Liz. My job is to love them. What they do with that is none of my business. And that's what I try to do that's how I just try to live my life. My job is to love you. What you do with that is none of my business at all. That's it. My job is just to love. If I'm looking for results, I'm not doing the deal. That's not unconditional love. That's transactional. I want something if you give it to me. And it took me a long time to get that. And continue to take inventory. And that's what you need to talk to people. Talk to people, because in my own mind, I can justify anything. My mind is dangerous, dangerous. And in prayer, meditation, whatever that means, whatever that means, it's seek. And then it talks about having a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. And that's different for everybody. And it's all in the seeking. We go out there and just keep on seeking. And what I've learned is that we have one problem and one solution. So the problem is always that I'm separated from this higher power, whatever that is. There's something where I see, it goes right back to what I said in the beginning, how I thought that you guys all had it together and I was different. And so if I'm feeling uncomfortable right now, I feel the same thing. You got it all together, and there's something wrong with me. So one problem. And the solution is that I'm part of this whole thing. And how do I do that? Through seeking and attempting to unconditional love. That's what we do in here. We just love each other. So I ended up getting divorced. I moved to Boston, then I moved to California. And then I moved to Florida, and then back to California, then back to Florida. I've seen Alcoholics Anonymous all over the country, and I've seen Alcoholics Anonymous all over the world. And there's a really cool thing, because if you put blinders on and didn't look at the people and didn't listen to the accents and maybe a little bit differences in the format, the people in Alcoholics Anonymous say the same thing no matter where you are. It's the same answer for everything. You can be like, how does that work? How does, there's no promotion. We're not out there on television and having billboards. Or we have a book. We have some literature, but one problem, one solution. We all have that. We all have that problem, and we all have that solution of not drinking, one day at a time. Again, if you're new, I hope you catch alcoholism. Because if you have a drinking problem or you're alcoholic and you don't catch alcoholism, boy, it's not usually good. This is a tough thing, and it's really tough to do it on your own. Again, that's just my experience. So the deal for me is unconditional love. So that means it's none of my business what you do. That's a really tough one because I like to control things. I want things to work out the way that I want them to work out. And so about 10 years ago or 12 years ago, I'm fading. I've been up for like 36 hours straight or something. So I started doing hospice work. So I was able to help people die, and for me, and I know it's not for everybody, but for me, it was the most. It was a really cool thing because what do you get to talk about when people are dying? Stay in the moment, one day at a time, live and let live, let go and let God. How important is it? It's like, whoa, people are like, wow, where'd you get all this stuff from? I would use the same thing at work too, as my management style. And I had people say, where'd you go to college and get that? And I was like, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. But this stuff works everywhere. It's not just in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I started doing this hospice work for about 10 years. And I loved it. And I was a volunteer, and I volunteered. I'm obsessive compulsive. I volunteered 50 hours a week. I just loved it. And then COVID came, and I wasn't able to go see patients anymore. And that was on March 15th, 2020, that I wasn't able to go see patients anymore. On March 21st or March 22nd, a couple of days later, I started transporting stem cells and bone marrow for transplants around the world. And don't ask me how it happened. So I went, this is just my experience, I went in one day, from helping people die to helping people live. And I'm going to tell you, I had nothing to do with it. I just showed up and said yes. They called this afternoon, could you speak tonight? Yes. Quick story, and I'll end with this. It was a Monday night, I'm 6 months sober, I'm with my sponsor. We're at a discussion meeting. It's one of my favorite meetings of the week, because I get to talk. And we're sitting there around the wall, and he grabs me, he said, we have to go. And I was like, what do you mean we have to go? He says, somebody couldn't show up at a commitment or at a rehab or something. And he said to me, when Alcoholics Anonymous asks you to do something, you say yes. And, all these things that I learned in the first year, I haven't changed anything. I mean, I just do the same thing, and I'm afraid to because they've been working for this long. I don't want to, I don't want to mess with it. So yeah, I moved from, helping people die to helping people live. And again, I have nothing to do with it. Nothing. I have nothing. I didn't have a moment of clarity. I haven't done anything. I haven't done things right. I've just done them. But people have shown up in my life, and they've loved me unconditionally. And the only message that has come to me is it's my job to love them, and what they do with that is none of my business. So if nobody told you today that they love you, let me be the first. And thank you for letting me share.